Hey everybody, welcome back to Endure, the Athlete Story. This is part 2 of the Mc Connellogue story. So if you haven't heard part 1, I highly recommend you go back and listen to that first, and then you can enjoy part 2 where Joe takes us through his road to recovery from his 4th open heart surgery and his journey to completing a half Ironman and everything in between. So hope you enjoy this one. Cheers.
I was very, very ill after the surgery. Don't get me wrong. I was very
Mm-hmm.
ill, and I'll give you some insight. And um, Una came to see me in ICU that night after my surgery, and I started to come off. The anaesthetic started to wear off far too quick. Because I was allergic to all these painkillers, I had very little pain relief. So whatever happened, I went under shock. I don't remember, but they said I started to shake on the bed and red lights started to go. Everybody was put out of the ICU and all the attention was on me. And my bed was right at the nurse's station, the first bed, because of my situation.
Mm-hmm.
And so don't know what happened there, but they had to work with me and everybody was put out. And, they were outside. Obviously, a very worrying time for them because then I had to have a conversation with a surgeon um, midway through surgery, and then they're told that if it went well and they got it done, and then they were on visit. They came to visit me, and this was in the middle of the night. It was sort of a special visit. They were allowed on just to put them at ease, and this happened.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it was difficult times for them too, but they got me settled. They got me round. I think they maybe sedated me a bit more, and they went home, and then I started to come out of the anaesthetic during the night. That was an awful night. I was in so much pain. I was sick again, throwing up because whatever they were giving me, I'm allergic to morphine and other things. So I was so sick, you wouldn't believe it. And I don't. Everybody has thrown up, and the pressure it puts on you. You try that with 12-inch scar in your chest. It's just been wired together.
Mm-hmm.
The pain of it is unbelievable, and I had very little pain relief. So that went on for hours and hours, and I felt at that time that I was struggling to survive. So I went on and I kept saying, "Oh, I don't, I'm struggling. I couldn't speak, and I had, air tubes down my throat, but I knew myself. And one of the things I always remember was this: if you propped up in the bed, and I was in so much pain, and it didn't feel as if I was breathing great, but I kept sliding off the bed, but I kept trying to lift myself up, and this went on for hours. The daylight started to come on. You could see that it was there's wee small windows in an AC or through the door. I don't know, but I knew daylight was starting to kick on, and I knew,
Mm-hmm.
well, I've got through the night, but I wasn't in a good place, and I was struggling to breathe, really, really struggling to breathe. And the shift changed. The nurse was changed. Una had phoned up, and the nurse had said that I was very, very bad. I had a very bad night, and I wasn't well, and things weren't good. So she rushed over. Before she got over, the nursing shift changed, and a nurse I mind I was struggling to breathe, and I thought, oh, this is it. Like I really can't breathe, and I can't. I was trying all night to breathe, and it was really difficult, and I couldn't breathe anymore. Really couldn't breathe, and I was fighting for every breath. I kept saying to myself, keep breathing, one more. But the nursing shift changed, and that was another miracle. The girl came in, and she was a nurse who had worked with athletes before, an ICU nurse. And she came in and she looked, I could see her. She had a bag, must have been her lunch, whatever. And she looked at the monitor, the back behind my bed. When you're in ICU, there's loads of monitors, and I could see her looking. And she had just come in the door to start her shift, but she looked at the monitor and she dropped whatever she had in her hand, and she started to run and call all our nurses. And she said to me, "Are you okay?" And I can't breathe. And I don't remember anything after that. I don't know where I stopped breathing. I did stop breathing, actually. They told me that after. But she had worked with athletes, and I think it was either in Canada or somewhere anyway in a different country. And people who are athletic, it's very common for them to have low tolerance to drugs, pain relief and stuff like that, whatever they do to their makeup. But she had come up, she had knew of a drug that she was able to give me.
Mm-hmm.
I woke up, I don't know, sometime later, and I felt so much better. I wasn't in so much pain. I was breathing easier. And that nurse was there, and I said, "What did you do?" And she just smiled at me and didn't say anything. But I knew whatever she had done had made a massive difference to me.
Mm.
And in that moment was the first time I knew then that I could take it from there, that I would be all right. So
Unbelievable.
I spent the day in ICU, and it was in a lot of pain and stuff. But because I had 4 surgeries, I knew I could have told you what was coming next. And you've all these tubes in and wires, and I knew then they were going to take the tubes out of my mouth. So they did that. It's uncomfortable, but breathing no problem. Got breathing again on my own. Didn't even need oxygen. Very little. And that nurse who tended me that day was very, very good. I'll never forget her. Um, I think she might have saved my life. Like. So started to feel, yourself, you're ill and you're in pain and you're sick, but I knew inside that I was going to recover.
Mm-hmm.
There and then, I knew I was going to recover. So I started to work towards that recovery, knowing everything that was happening. So I got myself out of ICU. They got me out of there. I started to eat and drink, force fed myself, and I was feeling really sick, but I was making myself eat.
Mm-hmm.
Because and drink. Drinking water is one of I learned was one of the very important things because your bladder's not working. You have catheter, and so you need you want to get off all those things and get back to functioning yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So I started on that journey, and that's a long journey. It's days and days. Um, got into the out of the ICU and into the high dependency unit. Normally, you would spend one night in the ICU and one night in the high dependency unit. I think I might have been 2 or 3 in each. 2 or 3 nights in each at least, and maybe an extra one in high dependency by the time. So I had a catheter and I asked the nurse to take it out and let me walk the toilet. He said, "No, you can't do that." And I said, "Look, just you know, give me a chance." I was still sort of force feeding myself, drinking liters and liters of water to try and flush. You have all these lines in the and you can't move. You're actually on a bed and you can't move for
Mm-hmm.
24 hours a day, and you hallucinate a lot. And because I was under uh, anesthetic for so long, you get delirium,
Mm-hmm.
and that is awful thing to happen. The terrible experience, the things you see and the things are happening. But I knew what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Part of me somewhere in my brain was telling me this is the delirium, this is happening, but it's not happening. So I was
Mm-hmm.
able to manage it and control it very well. But it's exhausting. You'd be so tired. No triathlon will ever make you feel as tired as heart surgery. I can tell you. So I steadily made progress, and I got the catheter out, which is one of them. The nurses used to say, "How is that bothering you with all the other lines and things you have?" And I said, "It's just, I just didn't like it." So I got out, and I got out of the bed, and I made my way to the toilet. And the nurse, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to the toilet." She says, "No, you can't." And I said, "Look, I'm okay." And you're carrying all these machines and drains and stuff. So I stumbled my way up the toilet and I went to the toilet and I was taking off all these things. That was one other thing. I went to the toilet. I was
Mm-hmm.
able to pee myself. My bladder's working. So I continued down that road and I got up onto the hospital ward and I was waiting there for echoes and other things getting warfarin and started to walk. As soon as I could got all that, I had still wires and monitors and I had a defib connected to my heart through my chest, a small defib. But I started to walk. I started to walk around the ward and I was setting myself targets, 50 meters, 75 meters, doing it in quicker times. None of the nurses knew this. It was only me, like, so um, I started to do all that and I started to recover. you're ill and you're sick, but you know you're making progress.
Mm.
So I knew all the things, taking drains out was very painful. They were just pulling tubes out of you, like, and there's no pain relief for me because I couldn't take it. Pulling wires out of you. So eventually got everything patched up, was black and blue, got all the tests done, and had been in hospital for over 2 weeks at this stage. Heart surgery now, I'm out 5 days. So I'd been there and I'd seen people come and go, and that's all very difficult. You know, when you're in
Mm.
the ICU and people come in after their surgery and they go out and you're still there. So got through all that and eventually got out. The surgeon came to see me and said, I'm letting you go home because it's better for you to be at home.
Yeah.
So I got home and I sort of had set myself a target that I would try to be back on my bike in 8 weeks. So I got home and I was walking, I was going out walks. It was cold all the time. I had memory loss, which was very embarrassing. Believe it or not, like, you're
Mm-hmm.
talking to people and you can't, you can't, you don't understand what they're talking about, and they're talking to you as if you should remember, and you
Yeah.
know you should remember, but you have
Yeah.
no idea what they're talking about. So I had that. I had very poor movement on my left side, my left hand. I couldn't hold a cup or couldn't. My left leg was trailing a bit, but I got out walking, and it was summertime. So I walked and I continued to walk and I tried to walk and I tried to walk further and every day I was making small gains, but never thought about triathlon
Mm-hmm.
at that time because I thought it was totally impossible. I just thought
Yeah.
triathlon's impossible. But I had said if I can get on the bike 8 weeks after surgery alone, and there's a photo of it, you've probably seen it.
Yeah. I
I was
think we
still
can
wired up,
share it to
at
the.
that stage.
I'll share that Instagram page
Yeah,
after as well, so people can see. It's
to
amazing. Few
see some of
photos
the,
of 8 weeks later, and then the condition you get yourself in there a few months down the line.
yeah.
It's
So,
incredible.
I mean, that photo of me on the bike was 7 weeks and 6 days after surgery. And I said, I'm getting on the bike. I had no grip in my left hand. I still had monitors and wires on me. But I pulled on the cycling shorts, got the bike on the turbo. Well, I didn't. I got uh, somebody to do it for me. And I got on the bike and on the turbo trainer. And I held on to it with my right hand. And I, I pedaled for 5 minutes. And that's where I was at, and that
Mm-hmm.
was a great achievement. So that was 8 weeks after surgery. So that was August, late August, early August, sorry. And I didn't get on the bike again for a few weeks after, but I did get on it again, and that was my road to recovery. Not thinking about triathlon, just thought if I can get on my bike, that was always something I liked doing.
Was that as much
But
mentally, Joe? Just to feel like you could do some
yeah,
normal things again?
just mentally, they say that I could do it again.
Mm.
But I was very sore from the surgery and all the scar tissue. Couldn't move my neck. Uh, uh, Nerve pain. If you ever experience, do you ever have a toothache, a nerve in your tooth?
Yeah.
My whole body was like that sort of pain, And I went and they put me on tablets called pregabalin, which is a very strong tablet, but that affects your central nervous system. So your brain is a bit your brain is slower, your reaction times and all. So I didn't really like being on that. I was on a lot of medication at the time, but I didn't really like being on it. And one of the other things I always try to do was get off. I try to understand what the medication is for, and I try to correct that my way and get
Mm-hmm.
off that. So I started all that, and I started getting off all that stuff. So eventually, I was on a blood pressure tablet, tablets for filling the blood, and the pregabalin. And I didn't really like the pregabalin because it's a very severe medication. It's not something, and it's slowing your brain down. You're not, you feel, you're on it, put it like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Plus, I was worried about being on the bike, my reaction times and things like that. But January 2020, I decided that I was going to go out on the road on my bike, and I wanted to go out on my own because what I did was probably crazy. Like, what's it, going out on a road on a bike, and I couldn't grab it. I couldn't hold the cup in my left hand. So it's, and I didn't really tell anybody, and I didn't really, over explain it. But people knew that I had problems with my grip on my left hand,
Mm-hmm.
and I was working on it, different exercise. But I wanted to get out my bike, so I said I would get out my bike and I would cycle down the road as far as I can. So got on my bike, went over the street, got to the bottom of my street, um, couldn't brake on my left hand, kept slipping off the handlebars. So I couldn't go out. I had to come home. And I got home and I said, I said, no, it's starting to rain. I don't want to get wet because I'm still feeling a bit weak. And so a couple of days later, I had another go. It was a better day. So what I actually did was I taped my hand to handlebars with insulating tape. And I went out and I cycled to Quigley's Point and back. And if anything had happened, my left hand was taped to the bars of the bike, onto the hood of the bike. So it was sort of
That's
crazy. They never told anybody to know that I did that.
crazy.
But I came up with a better solution after that. The wraps you would do for deadlifts.
Yeah.
So I got one of them, and that's how I kept my hand on the handlebars for until I got the strength back to hold the left hand on my own. I couldn't. I had to stay in the one gear on that side. I had to, but I wasn't cycling that far.
Yeah.
So I was getting out on the bike, and that's what I was doing to keep my hand on the bars. Then they started to look at me what was wrong with this, and it was nerve damage, nerves. So they said you could probably build this up a bit. So that led to the next part of my training, which was a lot of press ups, push ups, pull ups, different types of pull ups and light weights.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to do that in January 2019, and I stuck at it, and I was cycling. Got back into the pool, started to swim, and somewhere in the back of my head, the thought of triathlon started to come in, and longer distance triathlon, and I had watched, a film called Flat Line to Finish Line, where people had one heart surgery, and uh, six people they followed. They do an Ironman, and two of them did it. One of them died. One was stopped by medics. So that sort of brought, and I thought, but it actually made me want to do it more because there was two who succeeded.
Mm.
And I thought, if they could do that and they had one heart surgery and they made a film about it, you know, maybe I could do it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and so I had that thought in my head, and I always said that a year after my surgery I was going to do something. So I started to run again. Believe it or not, I don't know why. One day I decided I wanted to run. So I said, I'm going to run. So I said, like, I want to run. So I run from the crossroads where I live out to the Culmore Park, and it's 1.2k, I think. And I run it, and it was like running a marathon. And this was about, and this was January time. It was shortly after I got on the bike and started to train. It all happened very quick, but I run it anyway, and I run it in 9 minutes 46 per k, and I was shattered. And I had been doing I'd been doing 20 miles on a bike at this stage, very easy
Yeah.
on a low gear, but the run and I lay in the back of the car and I thought, I'm never going to be able to do this. I kept at the weights, the pull ups, and that sort of thing. I got myself into really good shape from then and got strong. Long, slow swims, really long, slow swims. Fell in with David Doherty and we were doing long swims, and that was good. So it was very slow and just kept chipping away at that. Started to get back out on the bike, a group with a train with, but still doing a lot on my own because I felt as if I was holding people back. And I got a feeling when I was out with people, they were a bit nervous, me
Mm-hmm.
being there, knowing what had happened. So I didn't really want to bother anybody, and I thought I need to find out for myself if I can do this. So getting into a year, I started to run, believe it or not, and that made the biggest difference to me. The sport, the one of the three disciplines that I hated so much and that I wasn't very good at, I set myself a goal to conquer it, and I started to run, and I started to run longer distance up on the 16, 17k, and I was plodding. I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
running very well. So I decided that on the 3rd of June, which is a year to the day after my surgery, 2020, and it was lockdown and all at that time, there was no reason, that I would get up in the morning at 6 o'clock and that I would do a half marathon on my own to see if I could do it. And I did. And I did it in an hour and 52 minutes. And I met Gary O'Donnell on the road, and he did it with me. Probably not knowing what I was at, but he did it
Aye.
with me. And, you know, at the end, I said, oh, I'd like to do 21K. And he sort of, probably not knowing the influence that he had on me that day, he helped me through it. And, you know, he's an experienced runner. He's a good runner. So he was able to hear when I was plodding and saying, you know, lift your feet, get your rhythm, keep going. So I
Yeah.
got through it and I did it. And I came home and I had to have a nice bath. I was wrecked, shattered leg. I'd never run that distance before, ever. I think 16K was the longest I'd ever run to that day. So here I was after my fourth heart surgery, recovering, and I had just run a half marathon, which I had never done before. And I started to think a half Ironman is possible here. So there was one happening. It was a club training day, and some of the guys from our training group was doing it. And I bought a new time trial bike. Don't ask me why. I had no intentions of riding it, but I bought it and it sat there, and I started thinking maybe I'll do this. And right up to the week before, I was toying the idea of going and doing this. But when I look back now, I was nowhere near ready. It was a good job. Might have got round it out of sheer
Yeah.
just determination, but would have been the wrong thing for me to do. The guys did it and they did well, and it sort of spurred me on and said, no, maybe next year I could do this. So I was training away. You were there yourself, and you know, all very low end stuff. I started into this zone two training, and it was great. I had more time now because I was retired, so
Mm-hmm.
I was sort of full
Full
time on
time.
that. And the zone two training worked really well for me. We spoke about a guy, I think it was you actually told me about him. He'd done a marathon, trained zone two, did a marathon zone two, did a sub 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So all these things were triggering in the head, thinking, "Oh, this is, you know, I could possibly do not only do a half Ironman, but do it in zone two and get a good time if I put that hours in the training. You know, just go out there and train at zone two, do the long bikes, the long runs." So we were training, and then that's where I sort of was locked down in that. So my training schedule, I was training during the day, sort of fitted in and so it with Gary O'Donnell. So we did a lot of training together, no real schedule, but I was learning a lot from him in the run, which was my weakest discipline.
Mm-hmm.
He had done a lot of running. He had I think he had a sub 2:45 marathon, which is no mean feat, and he was a good runner.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, so I learned a lot from him on how to run and how to get faster without suffering as much, you know. And I started to believe that I could run.
Mm-hmm.
I was a plotter before, but I was starting to become a runner, and that progressed over months. And I was running a lot better, and I was within my heart rate zone. So I started to believe a wee bit more myself in the run. And bike was going well. I was always my best discipline the bike, and the swim was always something that I was okay at, and okay was good enough for me. So I started to train, and then I started to think about this doing this half Ironman, which was back on the 11th of July. I
Yeah.
started to think about that very early. I had done some of the training for 2020. Had done some of the longer training, but I didn't follow the schedule right, and I was probably doing more biking than anything else. I was pretty fit, but not not to the extent where I was. And the program I was following was Dawn Fink and Melanie Fink, the half iron distance, and it was really
Mm-hmm.
good. It
Yeah.
was a lot of zone two, and it was only in the end where you went on to do some efforts in zone four. But I never did them. I stuck to the zone two stuff in year one. So Gary and myself were training a lot more together. And I said to him, you know, I wouldn't mind following this program. So we looked at it, and he looked at it, and we both bought the book, and there was a winter maintenance program in it. So we started to do that with
Mm.
no intentions of doing the half Ironman at that stage. So we started to follow that program. It was really good, and we never missed a session. We never missed a beat over Christmas and New Year, and you know, we never. I think we took 2 days off because the session was that suited to me. The recovery, which was very important, was built on it.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't getting injured. I wasn't getting tired. So I knew then from my own experience, I'd done years of triathlon leading up to that 6 or 7 years. So I got a bit of experience. So I knew that what I was doing was okay
Mm-hmm.
because those would be the markers, the triggers, the indicators. You know, if you're getting injured, if you're getting tired, that something's not right, that your training's not right. But that wasn't happening to me, and I was
Mm-hmm.
getting better and better at lower heart rates. I never actually got tested. I was going with the old heart rates from the previous test. So decided that might have a go at this half Ironman in London and Buncrana earlier on. So the first thing we aimed for was the Triathlon, which is the 5th of June. So it was a 16-week program. So we'd done the winter maintenance and we'd went through it several times. So we decided we'd start the 16-week program and build under the 5th of June. I wasn't for doing that. Gary was going to do it, so I was training with him. So we thought we'll go for that and we'll lead into that. But that was cancelled due to
Mm-hmm.
COVID. So the next one then was the the one the club training day. There was word that that might be happening around. So we just said, look, that's 8 weeks on. So we divide we adapted the training schedule to be extended for 8 weeks without overdoing it.
Mm-hmm.
So we sort of put in, what we would have called point 0.5 a week. So instead of going from week 7 to week 8, went week 7 to week 7.5.
Mm-hmm.
Again, followed the schedule that he never missed a beat. I was getting better and better. I was running up on the 2 hours, 15 minutes, and we were running up 17 miles, which was great for me, 26, 27, and I was really enjoying it. And then we started on the 6 weeks training peak in the book, and it was a wee bit apprehensive because some zone 4 was coming in there, and I wasn't sure. So I got tested, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
I was delighted with the test. That was one other thing that was on the back of my head. I knew I needed to get tested, but um, I didn't know if we would get the numbers that I liked. But I did,
Mm.
and I was happy with them. I
Yeah.
was really happy with them. I was sort of in a better place than I thought I might be. Didn't get a lot of checkups, my heart condition at this time because of COVID, and spoke to a few people online, and it just wasn't. So that was in the back of my mind too. I
Mm-hmm.
was going into this, and I hadn't really had a checkup.
Yeah.
Felt okay and felt good. So I don't know. Things were starting to fall into place. I got a phone call from the cardiologist to say that she was going to start doing some tests, some echoes, things like that, and they were all done. Um, about they were done around April time, which was great timing.
Mm-hmm.
And the numbers came back, the tests came back, and there was no deterioration. So that was good
Yeah.
for me. Everything was the same in numbers as they were. They're not great, and and I do love every day with heart disease, and my heart percentage of how my heart works was a lot less than a normal person, probably less than half. But
Mm-hmm.
I'll always have that. But it wasn't getting any worse, so that was good. And I had done a lot of training to that point, so it wasn't affecting me in that way.
Yeah.
Um, and I did all those tests, got all my checkups. They were all squeezed in together, and everything went well. So I was happy to continue training, and I was just coincided with me starting the zone 4. Now, in between that, believe it or not, probably from the surgery, I got a bug, and I was bleeding internally, basically. So I was getting a lot of tests, cameras, and stuff like that in between.
Mm.
And they discovered that it was a bug, and they were able to fix it out with a blast antibiotics. So trained right through that.
Mm.
Just thought, I've trained through worse. I'm just going to keep training to pull back. Really lowered my heart rate at the
Yeah.
times I was on antibiotics and stuff like that, and was try to be as responsible as I could be. And I suppose coming from someone who taped their hand on bike, the bars of a bike, uh, I was being as responsible as I could be, but I was really focused on the training and really wanted to do the half Ironman. Really wanted to do it, and was telling everybody, probably including yourself, that the goal was to get across the finish line, and
Yeah.
that was my goal, was to get across the finish line. Didn't care about times. I didn't care about if it was didn't make a cut off or whatever. I just wanted to get around the course and do it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I was getting better in training. I mean, numbers were good, my times were good, and I thought, I wonder could I go under 5 hours? Would that be possible? Like, and sort of mentioned a few times, and people looked at me as if they say, look, most normal people wouldn't try and go. No, 5 hours is a pretty decent time unless you're a top end athlete, which I'm not. Like, but for someone
Mm-hmm.
like me, an amateur, under 5 hours isn't bad.
Mm-hmm.
So I was playing with that, and then I started to think maybe I could beat one or two boys on the way, one or two. And then I started saying, no, don't be thinking like that because that will ruin it for
Yeah.
me because I would start to push. So I put that out of my head and I stuck to my numbers. In fact, I came back a wee bit and started to train in the lower end of zone two.
Yeah.
Um, Started to come on the training peaks of zone four. Started that, was a bit worried about that. But a couple of weeks in, I started to get better. I really did start to get better. Started to run faster, started to bike faster. My power was good. My heart rate was good. My pace was good. And I wasn't getting injured or I wasn't feeling overly tired.
Mm-hmm.
And we had some good training sessions, you know, that we did where we stuck to our numbers and the times were good. We went down and we did the training day in the Sheephaven, which is a tough course. And we didn't break any records or set any, but we had a real solid training day. Times were good. My run time was delighted with that off a bike. The
Mm-hmm.
bike was solid. The swim was solid. So that was 3 weeks out from London. Um, and I was feeling really confident, that bar accident or something really going wrong, I was confident that I was going to get round that course.
Yeah.
So training went on and we came under 2 weeks taper. I made adjustments to the bike, all the things you do. Went and did a time trial, a very, very measured 25-mile time trial. I have to say, I didn't put myself under the red or I didn't overcook it or didn't. And I went out and did, I wanted to do it on my own for myself just to see if I really was where I thought I was. And
Mm-hmm.
I was delighted with how I done that evening, given what I had set out to do. I was delighted. I wasn't wild far away from some pretty decent triathletes. So I
Mm-hmm.
was happy, with how I done. So everything was in line. All the training was going well, and we done the 2 weeks taper. I probably started a wee bit of doubt, maybe started the see how long I was trawling the internet for things. I was trying to reach out to cardiac athletes, but I couldn't find anyone who had four open hearts. I just wanted to see if there was someone out there that would give me a wee bit of hope.
Mm-hmm.
You know, couldn't find anyone, and that's when I started thinking, "Am I the only person doing this thing?" And I still haven't found anyone. So I don't know if I'm the only person or not. But if there is someone out there, I would be more,
Yeah.
delighted to hear from them.
If there's
But
anyone out there that has done any triathlons or even any longer distance triathlons, get in touch with us and we'll put you on the Joe, and I'm sure he'd be delighted to chat to you about it.
would definitely would because I have, I'm not saying there's no one out there, but I haven't discovered anyone, and I've tried. I've looked in all the places where you're likely to find someone like that.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, people's had heart surgeries, but not four. Um, so 2 weeks out into the taper phase, and as you know, when you're tapering, you're not training as much. You've got more time, so it started to get a wee bit edgy.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew the wise side of my head. I knew that I had to taper, that I had to couldn't go into this race fully loaded. I
Yeah.
had to, taper, and all the time I was training with Gary, and he had lots of experience, and he was sort of saying, "No, we need to do this and we need to do that," and we were bunching off one another, and it was good to have
Mm-hmm.
someone there the whole time through the whole journey. And uh, I'm I'll give credit where credit's due. Gary did stick with me that whole training station, and he'll tell you I helped
Mm-hmm.
him, but he was a big help to me just to have someone to train with.
Yeah.
And just the timing, and he was the right person for me to train with for this event.
Yeah.
I just needed to do. I didn't feel I could do it in the wider group because there's too many different people at too many different levels, and you find you're trying to compete with them and training
Yeah.
and things like that. So it was either on my own or with one other person, and that's why it worked so well for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an added bonus that Jerry has over 25 years experience in the sport,
Yeah.
and I've feeding off that all the time, especially on the run.
Mm-hmm.
And so we went into the 2 weeks taper, and I was really looking forward to doing the race at this stage. Part of me was, but I was starting to get apprehensive. I was starting to sort of thinking things that could go wrong, um, and not really telling anybody about them. And then I would look back on the experiences and the things that I had achieved to date, and sort of that would, I was up and down thinking, I can do this. I've had worse days. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I definitely
Mm-hmm.
have had worse days. Like, I'm in good shape now. I can do this. And so that brought me into the race. And I was starting to have imaginary injuries and things, I think. Or I was looking for,
You
I
always
got this
do.
sort of, I got this injury in the hamstring, and that's exactly what Gary said to me. That was normal. So, that experience again of people who've done more triathlons than me and who are better at me was great. They have, so got a bit of our treatment on it and got a bit of advice on what they do, and spent most of the Saturday before the race with my leg hanging over the back of a chair trying to, because I tried to run on Saturday morning with a wee short session, a 15-minute bike check with 20-minute running. I think I run 5 minutes. I couldn't
Mm.
run. I knew it was an injury that was, I had to write myself off. I knew there was still a bit of hope. So I treated it all day that Saturday, got prepared, got my nutrition prepared, and thought, right, I'm going to go here anyway in the morning. So got up, didn't sleep at all that night. Didn't
Did you?
sleep
Did you
at
not?
all. No, no sleep at all. Like I was really, this was probably the biggest. I had done a lot of races where I was racing for, I had once before. No, I had won age groups, finished second in age groups. I had won a series before, but this was the biggest race that I was ever. Or I never called it a race. I called it an event. Uh, it was the biggest event that I was going to, and I know it
Yeah.
was only a club training day, but for me, it was the
Yeah.
biggest race that I was ever going to have to do. So got up in the morning, went, and surprisingly, I wasn't at all nervous on the day of the race. It wasn't, the way you can get nervous, everybody. I wasn't at
Mm-hmm.
all because I had I had achieved the first thing I wanted to do, and that was to get to the start line. So I was there
Yeah.
at the start line, and it wasn't a big, massive group going out and it, and no idea how I would do. I knew there was possibilities, that I could do okay, but also knew there was a possibility that it would be I just get round and get over the finish line. Um, so I went out and it was very calm, and in the swim started off swim. You know, I was trying to think up of race tactics as you do. They give me. I didn't do all this training. They call me make a stupid mistake.
Mm-hmm.
So I had planned my race. My biking was my strongest event. So if I needed to work or make time, that's where I had to do it. And I knew that. So I had decided, for example, that I would put my socks on after the swim.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't mind if people got out on the bike in front of me. I thought if I'm going to get them back, that's where I'll get it. I didn't want to waste that time going out on the run
Yeah.
because, you know, so I went out and I swum. Started off, and I think we were going with a tide for the first couple of 100 meters, but we turned the buoy after about 100 meters, and you're talking to yourself. And I felt fine, but I asked myself a question, can I maintain this pace and still be racing in 5 hours? And the honest answer was no. And I was sort of saying to myself, geez, when did you become like this? you know, being cautious. But I wanted to finish the race that much.
Yeah.
I thought I can't, so I let it go. I let the group go.
Yeah.
So I was behind them, and we were swimming against the tide. I know that now because of the pace.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at it after, and I was swimming. I was working where I was putting in the effort that I wanted to put in, but I wasn't swimming at the pace that I wanted to swim at.
Yeah.
But that was because of the tide and the conditions, and the group pulled away from me.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided I would let them go, and they put a substantial gap in before the buoy, the turn. Um, but I just kept going, and at that stage, I had conceded to that I would be going around this course on my own, and that it was now me
Yeah.
and the finish line. And I was relaxed because I knew I was fit enough to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It might have took me six and a half set, but I was going to do it. I knew in that moment that I was going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a question of whether I was going to do it or not. So got round the buoy, looked up, could see the group up in front of me, and there's starting people to come on behind from all our distance. And I was in that hole, so I just put my head down and I kept swimming. I'm confident that I'm a pretty decent swimmer, and I'm not going to set the world alight, but I'm okay. And every time I looked up, they were coming back to me, and I started to think they might have went a bit too fast against this tide. Maybe I've been right here.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time we got into the last boy, I had closed the gap significantly. Hadn't closed it fully, but closed it to more than half of what it originally was.
Yeah.
And I started to feel, maybe I'm getting this right. Maybe I did, maybe I did pace this swim well.
Yeah.
So got out, stuck to my plan. Everyone was away on the bike. I wanted to be in the group because if I could get in there, even psychologically, the race was going to be easier for me. And I
Mm-hmm.
was taking every advantage that I could get. I needed every advantage that I could get. So got out, still put my socks on, stuck to the plan, let the group go away. Got out on the bike and I thought, right, I'll put in an effort here and see if I can get them back. I was confident in on my biking ability that
Mm-hmm.
I could give it a go at least and that it wouldn't ruin my race. Didn't know where I'd get back into the group or get back into the mix, but I gave it a go. Within Tony Gray was there, and he had told me after that he was shattered for those first couple of minutes. So us with me trying to fight back in, but 12 minutes I think, and I was back in. Now I
Yeah.
did go deep in those 12 minutes, and I didn't look at my heart rate, or anything else or my power because I knew it was way over and above. It was coming out of the water. I knew it wasn't. It was just a waste of time looking at it
Yeah.
at that stage. Because I didn't plan for it. I thought I might have
Mm-hmm.
stayed in the group in the swim. I didn't plan to be dropped in the swim. But on the same token, it was okay.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't going to put myself in danger the of not finishing the race, just to swim a bit quicker. So got on the bike and was feeling really, really strong on the bike and did the whole bike leg and felt strong right to the very end. The bike didn't wasn't overtaxing for me, and I was times I was sitting doing pulls 26 mile an hour. I knew I was feeling strong.
Mm-hmm.
And I would probably be safe to say, maybe some of the other guys that were there, mate, but I would say I probably was the strongest person at that time
Mm-hmm.
on the bike, or I had more left in the tank. Maybe it was because I didn't swim as hard
Yeah.
as the rest, and maybe it was because I'm just naturally biking is my best discipline, or maybe it was just the way I was feeling, but it felt good. My nutrition had all been good at that point. I was getting the fluids on, I was eating on the bike, and it didn't felt good on the bike, felt good coming on to the run. Got on, my plan, I put my socks on, worked a treat because I was first out of transition on the run. And for me, I mind thinking the best case scenario for me, best possible case scenario for me in this race would be to be on the run course first. I knew I was never going to run
Yeah.
because I was probably the weakest runner there. But I thought if I can get out there first, and it's just down to the run, and I knew exactly what I could do in the run.
Mm-hmm.
So I did get out first, but it was in no time. The guys were past me, but I expected that fully.
Mm-hmm.
So went out a wee bit quick in the run, which is natural, but very, very quickly realised I was running too quick and pulled it back. And the run at that stage, because I felt so good coming off the bike, I felt I was running really slow.
Mm-hmm.
But the pace was probably a bit quicker than I wanted to be. So I kept pulling back. And I had been passed already by three other people at that stage. But I wasn't actually worried about that. And at that point, I never thought breaking 5 hours wasn't in my head or passing anybody wasn't in my head.
Yeah.
So I just stuck to my plan. And I looked 10 yards up the road and I said, I'm going to run this 21K in 1 hour and 45 minutes. I know I can do that. And that's what I started to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I did it. And I got out in the first 5K. There's people in front of me, people had passed me. They were obviously running faster than me. And I stuck and I was on a pace that I wanted to be on and I kept on it. And I started to see that people were coming back to me about
Mm-hmm.
7K into the run. And I thought, oh, this is not happening. This couldn't be happening because I haven't got any faster, but I was sticking to the pace. And I had passed back one of the people who had passed me. And I couldn't believe that had actually happened because up until that stage, I just wanted to get to the finish line. I
Mm-hmm.
hadn't looked at my swim time. I hadn't looked at my bike time. I had no idea. Only thing I knew at that time was the pace I was running because I had to stick. I knew that was a number that I could maintain. So my first K and my 17th K were in the exact same pace. And then we went through transition for the last time to go out. and I started to suffer. I don't know, it was mentally, because I think we had about 5K to do at that stage. And for the first time, I started to suffer. And I went downhill very quick from there. Every run pace started to slide. And at that time, just get to the finish line. So I didn't care if I was last or who was in front of or who was behind. And you were there that day yourself, so you know well,
Hmm.
it was a case then.
I
We
was
had
one.
held a
I
pretty
was one of
decent
those ones
pace.
that you were starting to catch.
Yeah,
I was in
people
the
were
same
saying to
boat.
me, you might catch, and I didn't care. I'll be honest with you, I didn't care where I caught you or not at that stage.
Uh,
I was suffering, and I just wanted to get the finish line.
I was
And
the
I knew
same.
you were probably suffering too, and
I was the
a couple of
same.
people, we were all suffering because we it was a pretty fast pace. It was a lot
Yeah,
faster than I had intended to go out and do.
yeah.
And again, I hadn't looked at my time, so. Got the finish line. I actually did see you up the road, but I knew I wasn't catching you or anybody else because I was really on the back foot then.
Yeah.
And, I was suffering as much as anybody else. But I maintained, I kept going because I knew I was going to do it. And I got across the finish line. I couldn't believe it. I thought, but I didn't look at my time. I just stopped my watch and didn't look at my time. Got changed. People, I think while I was out in the course, the word started to spread that this guy's out there, he's doing this. I was going well. By all
Yeah.
accounts, I didn't know I was just doing my thing, but people were coming up along and said, geez, you're going well.
Mhm.
There's a lot of people, and the things that they were saying, he was really encouraging, and that helped me get through it.
Mhm.
Tony Gray was there. He was my sort of nutrition man, and he was in my ear. He kept me going, and, he was giving me any nutrition that I needed. And because of COVID, we couldn't, there was no water breaks or nothing. So, that everything went, it was just one of those days that everything went right for
Mhm.
me. People probably look and go, you didn't do that great. You have to understand where I had come from.
Mm.
And if you look
Definitely.
at the photos and that's the photos that you're going to put up, you'll see. And just to do it was great. So got in, stopped my watch. I was delighted. I think everybody could tell it was surreal for me to get it done. It was tough. The last 5K was tough. Don't get me wrong. And there was times during it that I thought, but I always knew I was never going to stop. Like I was going to keep
Mhm.
going. I wanted to stop, but you always want to stop one of these.
Yeah.
It had been a few years since I'd done one, but I mind having that feeling before, and I
Mhm.
knew I had that ability to push through it. I knew I was going to get the finish line. A great feeling when I got there. People were congratulating me. I didn't I, I didn't know. I had nothing to say. It was surreal, like for me to have achieved it.
Mhm.
I don't think anybody will understand. People will who were there who know me closely, or yourself even to do this,
Mhm.
podcast is sort of showing that you recognize
Yeah.
from a triathlon perspective, probably what anybody who does triathlon knows, the commitment it takes, how difficult they are.
Mhm.
When you get bad days, and I did all of that with heart failure and
Yeah.
heart disease as well to deal with. So it's good for me that I'm doing this podcast and that people would recognize, and I hope someone out there that it helps them.
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't have to be heart disease, but it could be something or anything else.
Mm. What would you say,
But
Joe, to anyone that is in that position, maybe same position as yours, where
don't
it's a hard problem or just some problem, or even somebody who's healthy? What's your advice?
The easiest thing to do is to say that you can't. Never say that you can't do something. You can at least try.
Mhm.
And I would have always said that if one person can do it, another person can do it.
Mhm.
One man can do, another man can do. And the Ironman motto is nothing's impossible. But I think it's down to your mindset. If you, a lot of people who do triathlon anyway are, I don't think you would do triathlon if you didn't have some sort of that mindset of, endurance and put yourself through that torture and pain that a lot of people who don't do them would see it as. But I would say, yourself. You can't blame it. You can't rely on anybody else
Mhm.
to tell you that you can't do something. You have to make a decision that if you want to do it, you're going to do it, and you're the only person to control that.
Mhm.
And I made that decision probably as early as I could. And for me, it was a case of get busy loving or get busy dying. So for me, triathlon was my sport. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, they love the life that I want. They love that had to be part of it. And
Mm-hmm.
it was a good way for me, to show people that, I was told that I would have to learn to walk and I might have kidney failure and I might need a pacemaker and all these things that were supposed negative things just to
Mm-hmm.
survive. But I wanted to show that, the will, the human mind and the human will is, I don't think there's anybody who can measure it or knows how far we can push it.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that we really only, our minds stop us
Yeah.
all the time, that our physical ability is much greater than our minds will allow us to tap into.
Mm-hmm.
And triathlon and athletes in general are people who try to override that,
Yeah.
because when they get into the business end of a race, or if they're in a fight for first or second or whatever their challenge is, and my challenge was just to finish this race, but other people, the Olympics is on at the middle, and at the minute they're challenging for gold medals and they have
Mm-hmm.
to fight for it.
Yeah.
And the mind, the key to success for me is, if you can if you can override your mind to put you into a place where you didn't think you could go, then your body will not let you down.
Mm-hmm.
And my
Like,
body, inept as it is, the norm person didn't let me down.
yeah.
I just had to get control of it and get the mindset right to push myself into that place where, I could get the best out of the body that I have, the
Yeah.
physique that I have, the issues that I have, heart disease and all. And
Well,
it just shows you that you can.
when
You
you
can do
come
it. I did it.
from fighting for every breath, like you explained earlier in
That's
the
right.
show, and fighting for your life, which you don't have a choice, you have to fight. You
You
had
have
to
no.
fight,
That's right.
as you
You have.
say, for there was life or death, and then they go to a triathlon and obviously use that what you've come through is probably, as you said before, it's easier at triathlons, easier in
Yeah.
any challenge you faced coming out of the surgeries.
That's one of the things that I kept saying to myself, especially in those last 5K and Ironman, was when I was suffering, and I was suffering, and you were there. You know what it's like. You've done triathlons. Anybody done knows when you're suffering. I just kept saying it. I've had worse days than this, and I
Mm-hmm.
did.
Mm-hmm.
And
Y-
one of the things that kept me going is saying I have 20 minutes to go here. I faced on the worst days like this. I knew that it was going to be weeks,
yeah.
months
Yeah.
before I could get out of it.
And
So that was easy for me to override that mindset.
yeah, and you must have an immense sense of gratitude, Joe, now each day, like when you see where you've come from, to be able to get up and go out and enjoy
Oh
your
yeah,
bike and feel healthy. And I suppose it's a message to anyone that, including myself, that hasn't had anything major health problems, that you need to just take every day for, you can't take it for granted. You just have to be grateful for every day you wake
definitely.
up healthy.
And you have to enjoy it, no matter what it is. I'm on the sports and I love the outdoors, and I am really grateful that even, and it probably makes it easier for me in a way, because when I go out on my bike and it's a nice day, and if I'm wherever I am and the scenery is beautiful, still always say to myself that I am the luckiest person on the planet. I mean, the surgeon told me that. He says, you are the luckiest person on this planet after my surgery. He says,
Unbelievable.
he says, you know, it was the most challenging thing he ever did. And I couldn't tell you how anybody that's had any medical issues or lifelong issues will tell you that the medics that care for them are, you know, and it sort of came to the fore a wee bit with COVID and people seeing what nurses and doctors and people, but they do that every day,
Yeah,
COVID or not,
and they're
and it's
unbelievable.
just on
And
a bigger scale. That's unbelievable what they do and what they can do.
yeah, because
So, they gave me the chances, they did. And my way of repaying them is living life to the full.
mm-hmm,
And, I try and every day I put my 2 feet out on the floor. I promise myself that I will that day live life to the full. And probably one of the downfalls for me and that is when I see people who aren't.
mm-hmm.
doing it. People who aren't, and I know people out there have a lot of issues, and it's just not as easy for them. I'd be disappointed in them. It angers me a wee bit when I see people wasting the opportunity of life. Maybe someone who's lying about doing nothing doesn't,
Hmm.
and that can happen easy. I understand that, but no, what I would tell people is never let anybody tell you can't. If you want to do it, it's up to you.
Hmm.
You have to
Hmm.
make that decision. It's like going to a training session. It's getting out of the house is the hard part. Once you're there, it's easy.
Yeah, and
You know,
hopefully
and
anyone listening that is struggling with that or is in a slump because of health issues or mental health, that they can just take inspiration from this. And as you said, if you could do it, somebody else
yeah,
can do it,
that's
then it
right.
can be their own
Anybody could
goal,
do it.
no matter how small or how big, that they should go after it and take
Yeah.
inspiration from your own story.
Well, I've done it now, and what I would say to anybody, and always used to say to myself, one man can do, another man can do. I've done it, so can you.
Hmm. What's
And it
next for
doesn't
you,
have
Joe?
to be. Uh, I don't know. There's things floating about in my head, and uh, well, I suppose we're crazy, people who do triathlons, but I'm
Yeah,
learning to surf, as you know, so
yeah,
really,
that'll be
really
good.
enjoy it. I had my first surfing lesson on Monday, and I thought halfway through it, why did I not do this before?
Uh, it's
It
an
just was all the things that I love, being in the water, being in the outdoors, and just, I didn't do nothing spectacular. I managed to get up on the board a few times, but really, really enjoyed it.
yeah,
And I have another one now on Wednesday, or tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to that. Still
brilliant.
training away, not the schedule. I
Yeah,
find sometimes when you've went through a schedule, and we stuck that schedule so long, it was pushed back so many times with COVID, and getting a break from that schedule mentally is good. So I'm actually training away every day, but I'm not sticking to the schedule.
yeah.
I got up today with intentions to go out on my bike, and I ran instead.
Hmm.
So, because the weather was poor, and I thought,
Yeah,
so, I'm still enjoying it, doing swimming, biking, all the usual stuff, and enjoying it. Some really nice bikes and that good weather, really, and thankful to be fit. See, to be fit and going out and doing that is
yeah.
so much easier and so much more enjoyable. But I don't have anything planned at the minute. Surfing was sort of something I always wanted to
Did you
do and
want to
never
try?
get around to it. So I wanted to try it, and I don't know whether it's something I will take on or not, but
Mm.
hopefully it would be, because there's all the things that I enjoy, and if I'm get half decent at it, it's something I wouldn't mind having a go at.
From what you've just
Um,
told us, Joe, I can see us in about 5 years' time sitting down and saying, first man to surf 100 foot wave after four open
I
heart
know.
surgeries or
Well, you
Olympics,
see,
the next
when
Olympics.
I was going to surfing, the reality was much different than, I was picturing Hawaii shorts and a
Nah,
barrel wave spun it up. It wasn't really that, but it was very a lot more enjoyable than I thought. I'd watched boys surfing before, thought they'd spend a lot of time waiting on the wave.
uh,
But that time
so,
flies in when you're actually
uh,
out there, so I enjoyed it.
that's it.
Um, there's some things like flying about. I would like to do Muscle Malin cycle. I always wanted to do that.
Yeah.
Just it was one of those things I wanted to do. The thought of doing a full marathon is there. I don't know, because of the advancements I made in my running ability
Hmm.
in the lead up to this Ironman. I never undertook a marathon before. Now it's something that I think maybe I could do.
Yeah.
So maybe when the summer's over and I'm starting training, that might be something that I aim towards. The big thing that I always wanted to do, and I always said I would like to do it before I was 50, and I'm 50 next April, and I haven't done it as yet, but it might have to be pushed back a few years. I would like to go to France, and I would like to climb the Tourmalet, Mount Ventoux, and Alpe d'Huez. That's something I would really, really like to do, because I watch the Tour de France every year and have
Yeah.
even before I got on, and just amazed at the climbs and that the pro cyclists are doing and the watts they're putting out and up them. And I would
Hmm.
actually like to go there and feel what it's like to go up it on the bike like
That's
myself.
unbelievable.
So
I think
something I would like to
if
do.
if anyone's listening with any contacts or any just contacts to make that happen, let's get in touch and get you
Oh,
out to climb
if
the
there's someone
Alps.
else, all right. I probably know
Anyone,
me. I probably will at some stage get there, like, but when I'm fit now, I would like to do it.
good
But
stuff.
just
Let's
enjoying
somebody
training,
listening.
enjoying being fit.
Good stuff. That's brilliant, Joe. Absolutely inspirational.
Uh,
story
So
like
that's
this.
my story, and it's people have said to me before, you should write a book. You should. I've never done anything before, so thanks, Emma, for the opportunity. Getting,
Because
I find it difficult to talk about, as you probably picked up on.
well, that's what I was going to say, Joe.
During
I've
the
known you
interview.
for years. I've trained you for years, and I've never heard 95% of anything you just said. No, I knew
Not
you
many
went.
people have. Like,
I knew you were going on for surgeries, but you don't know extent. You don't know the ins and outs of the recovery, the mental aspect, your family. Like you're just Joe that shows up 5 minutes early, and you're there at every session, and you don't mention. You just get the session done, and that's it. And there's no drama made about it. So to hear your story, this podcast is called "Endure the Athlete Story," and there's
yeah.
you just sum it up because you endure in your illness, you endure in your training. You're an absolute animal of an athlete, and that's one of the best stories that you could come through and be where you are now. So thanks for coming on and sharing your story, and I hope it helps people, and I hope it helps yourself too, and that
Oh,
anyone.
it definitely does. It would help. I suppose it's probably the first time I've sat down and outlined my whole story. And that is only touching. There's so much more.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of bad days where you just you think your world's crashing down on you, and I try to focus on the positive,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why triathlon was so important to me. It was a big positive.
Mm,
The people who do it seem to be, it's their out. And it was definitely my out. It was my solace. Getting out
mm-hmm.
my bike was, that's when I felt good, when I was happiest, especially when maybe the days on between weren't
Yeah.
so good. When you're not feeling physically the best.
Mm-hmm.
To get out on your bike, and just that's where I got my joy and my pleasure out and running and triathlon and meeting up and getting under the water. And just, would encourage anybody. It's possible they do it. Like, you don't have to, my gold medal was completing a half Ironman on whatever time I did.
Yeah.
I did it in 4 hours 58 minutes. By the way, I broke 5 hours,
That's
so
that's
that
unbelievable.
just one of those days. 4 hours 58 minutes and 47 seconds. I took a photograph of my watch.
And
I just couldn't believe.
that's part of it as well.
You know,
Like we heard your story, everything you've come through, but and then between times where you were training stuff, you weren't just, and you can tell from your mindset, you weren't just there making up numbers. You weren't just out to complete a wee easy session. You're a top athlete, and even I had Connor Bradley, a friend of yours, on the show, and a top Irish runner, runs for Ireland, a phenomenal athlete, and we talked about it in the show.
yes,
Connor trained with us for a while
I did.
during an injury in the bike, and he was just saying about like trying to train you and keep up with you in the bike. So this is a man who's at the top of his game as a runner, even on the bike. Like he's always talked about trying to keep up with you in the bike, and you're someone who's come through these surgeries. So, and then to do a half Ironman of 4:58 for anyone at any age is unbelievable. For
Yeah.
yourself, approaching 50 years of age and coming through 4 open heart surgeries is just
I couldn't believe it. I
incredible.
actually waited. I was an hour after across the finish line before I dared look at my time, because everything else was a success for me, and just couldn't believe it when I looked and seen 4 hours. But I just thought, some days everything just goes right, and that was
Yeah,
one of those days. And I was really lucky. No bike mechanical, anything could have happened to
yeah,
stop me from achieving it, and it didn't. I'm really, really grateful for that. I did everything I could do, but there's other external forces that can happen to any athlete. It's happened to us all: punctures, mechanicals, injury.
yeah.
Really lucky and really thankful that everything went in my favor and made it possible for me. Even though I did a lot of work to get there, but I was really, really glad that something trivial didn't stop me from achieving what I set out to achieve.
Unbelievable. Thanks a million, Joe, for sharing your story, opening up and telling us the whole journey. It was unbelievable to listen to. I'm sure many people's going to get a lot of inspiration. I feel like
Well,
I feel like
hopefully, if it
going out.
helps one person, like,
I feel like going out for a training session myself here now, just to be grateful for my health and the ability to
that's
do
right.
that. So it's thank you. So cheers, Joe. Thanks a millilion.
Thanks, Emmett. Thank you very much. All right.
So, show's over. Thanks everybody for listening. I hope you enjoyed that 2-part episode with Joe McConnellogue. An incredible story, absolutely unbelievable. The things he had to overcome, the physical, mental struggles to get back to fitness and health. And then I think the takeaway is just being positive, having gratitude for your health, getting up every day and enjoying your body and what you can do. And for anyone that is going through a tough time with their health, that there's hope and positivity, and we see that from Joe's story. So hope everyone is inspired by that and motivated. I certainly was. So if you enjoyed the show, please leave a review, please share it with your friends, please give us a message, let me know your feedback. Be greatly appreciated. And again, thank you to everyone that listens to the show. Really, really appreciate it, and it means a lot. Everyone that listens. So stay tuned. We'll be back next week with another great guest, and enjoy. Thanks.